Welcome again to the Brand Ambassador series. Today, of course, is another very special day because, because Gardner is here, but this is the art of Japanese whiskey with Gardner Dunn and the whiskies from Suntory. Quite a few different whiskies. Gardner, thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Cheers.
We're in for a treat because our customers love Yamazaki, they love Hibiki, and now they're getting acquainted, finally, with Hakushu.
Yeah. This has really been a long time coming that we can actually, I guess it's been 7 years now, but, since we've launched Yamazaki 12 year and 18, it's been, and then Hibiki. But Hakushu is our other distillery up in the southern Alps of Japan. A little peatier, but very crisp. We use different oaks as well.
Right.
But just really exciting that Japanese whiskey is becoming a category.
4 different products that we've got here. 3 distilleries, 2 single malts, and a grain.
And a grain, yeah.
We're in to talk about.
Yeah, well, I brought you a bottle one time of the Cheetah.
The Cheetah,
and Mike Miyamoto, our master distiller, will always make fun of me because I've fallen in love with the Cheetah. Even though it's just a corn and cereal-based whiskey. In all rights, it should taste like a bourbon, but it doesn't. But yeah, that is the backbone for Hibiki. And the cool thing about Hibiki is that, blends usually have a bad name in the U.S. It's a special blend. I think the unique thing about Hibiki is that we actually we use old American oak barrels and we season them with plum wine liqueur called umi for 2 years. Take it out, and then usually, depending on the year, it's 25 to 30 whiskeys in our blend between the two. Hakushu and Yamazaki and our grain whiskey, all the way up to 30 years old, just in our 12. So very unique. We go through a pretty taxing process to making that whiskey. Plum casks, to putting our blend in for another 2 years. Actually, the 12-year-old is the only one bamboo charcoal filtered as well.
Bamboo charcoal filtered.
Yeah, they seem it adds a creaminess to it and a smoothness to it.
All right. Isn't it something that we saw at Hakushu as well? Is it used for other distilleries or?
No, this is actually the only, and actually we have a 17, a 21, and a 30, and everyone's been trying to get over the 21.
Yeah.
But actually all those are not bamboo charcoal filtered.
All right.
Not saying they aren't charcoal filtered, but not with bamboo.
And you also know why. It's not just that it's good, but those awards every year.
Yes.
Are going to Japan. Those Whiskey Magazine awards, it's amazing. And let's start with Hakushu.
Yeah.
The water, the oak, what else is special there?
I think the biggest thing about, we started this distillery in 1972. Broke ground, started the distillery in 1973, but we founded in 1972. We wanted to find an extremely soft water. It's even softer than Yamazaki on the water table. It's actually, Hakushu means white palace. It's actually very famous for the mountain. It's up in the southern Alps of Japan. It's actually very famous for the white granite that's broken down and the water drains through all this white granite. So Hakushu means white palace, and it's really this beautiful, it's at 3,000 feet, almost 3,000 feet. And it lends also, it's one of the highest distilleries that actually maturates up there as well. So it's very unique. So in Yamazaki, we use 3 different oaks. American, Spanish, that's been seasoned with Oloroso. American, that's been pre-used bourbon cask and brand new American oak. And we also use Mizunara.
Right. Mizunara
is very important to us as far as whiskey making and the taste of Suntory whiskey. What's unique about Hakushu is that actually we don't use Mizunara oak. We only use American and sherry cask.
Right.
And we only use 3 sides of barrels: hogshead, barrel, and sherry cask. But because it's such at a high altitude and we see more altitude and more seasons, colder weather, we only use the hogshead and barrels for a reason, because we want more surface area to the
whiskey. Yeah.
To the whiskey. The sherry barrels, we use very small amounts in Hakushu, but those are always on the top of the cellars.
Okay.
so that they're higher temperature for maturation. And thank God Mike's agreed with me, but digression through innovation. So going back to the 40s, 30s, 20s, everyone was using wooden washbacks. No one was using stainless steel.
Right.
But as it went through the 50s and 60s, everyone started using stainless steel. It's easier to clean. So we actually figured out that bacillus, that is a natural enzyme in yogurt. In the wooden washbacks, it stays within the wood. And we actually have gone back to building, we just built 6 more washbacks in Hakushu and 6 more washbacks in Yamazaki.
Well, the world needs more whiskey.
I mean, they're harder to clean. Well, not just for that, but yes, definitely for volume but and production. But we feel that that really does add to the whiskey. So creating that natural process that happens in those washbacks is a huge importance, especially with the water. You know, about how yeast, you know, colonizes. If it needs to fight for the minerals that's coming through, so a soft water, less minerals, a harder water, more minerals, it creates this, it has to fight for them. So it creates we feel that the yeast has a stronger colony and creates this, you know, outer rim that, it's like kind of like grapes. Cognac, Armagnac.
Make it suffer.
Well, the more suffering, the better the grapes. You know, the harder it is. So
I keep saying that.
yeah, we feel that the yeast process and the washback and the fermentation process, the harder we can make them work in a way, but also by adding that enzyme that's a natural occurrence when you don't clean the washback out so hard that it's in the wood and it comes back out, and every time we see that interaction with the fermentation
benefits from
and we think that it adds a creaminess to the whiskey and a beautiful fullness to it.
All right. So what about the distillation process at Hakushu?
Hakushu is a little bit different. We use smaller stills and we use all direct fire. So Hakushu is built. Right now we have 11 stills going on. 2 of them are the old, huge. I wouldn't say they look like Glenrothes stills, but very tall. But actually the other ones, especially on our spirit side stills, are very small. So we'll actually use 1 wash still to fill 2 spirit stills. So they're much smaller and much more, I guess, smaller bulbous from the beginning, from floor to very small, compared to Yamazaki, which is just the type of whiskey that they wanted to make. So
we see that 12-year-old now. What else is for the rest of the world? Is there Hakushu 8 years old? Is there Hakushu 18-year-old?
We have a 10, 18, 25. We also have a Hakushu heavily peated and a Hakushu sherry cask. And eventually, I think, you know, we'd love to have them all over here, but you know, it's hard to get them over here. I mean, I obviously think Yamazaki is less peaty.
All right. What kind of peating level are we talking about for Hakushu?
Well,
is it between an Ardmore and a Lafroig? Is it below Beaumont? Where would you?
I think it's below Beaumont.
Okay. So it's light, yeah.
It's light, very upfront, but light. Okay. I wouldn't classify it as an Isla. Yeah.
One thing they've revealed, though, especially with Yamazaki, is that use of Japanese oak, the Mizunara you're talking about. It is now in the open, but up until a few years ago, there wasn't much said about that Japanese oak.
Yeah. Well, it's a funny story. During World War II, you know, obviously the trades were, you know, we couldn't get American, we couldn't get Spanish, obviously for certain reasons. But during that time, they started using Mizunara. And Mizunara is actually, we only get it from the top island called Hokkaido. It doesn't grow like normal oak. It grows very spread out. Right. So we can only actually utilize 30 or 40% of the tree for the barrel, whereas American oak I can use almost 70 to 80%. So it's tough to make the staves. It's actually a more of a brittle and tightened wood. So we started using it. We tried it after 4 years. We tried it after 8 years. We tried it after 10 years. The war was over. I threw 30,000 barrels in a cellar. They forgot about it. A guy came in, one of the guys tasting barrels. Thank God that the Japanese are so thorough, because what they did was they put a square around a certain number on the barrel that indicated that this was Japanese oak. Otherwise, no one would have known what it was. So they labeled it very well and documented it very well, but it was forgotten. So I think they tried it almost 30 years later, the first Mizunara barrel.
Wow.
And they were like, what is that? So this is amazing. A spiciness, almost a sandalwood kind of taste to it. Very complex, but very strong. So we started incorporating it in some of our blends. And then when we launched Yamazaki in 1984, as far as our first single malt, we started using small amounts of Mizunara. And then we've just seen it now. It just really adds a depth and texture and complexity to the whiskey. And it's an amazing taste.
I believe so.
Yeah.
And that 1984 must be a special year then, because I remember some 1984 25-year-old that was on the market a few.
We launched it a year and a half ago. And
absolutely.
It was about 90, they'll never tell me, but 90 to 95% only Mizunara. So it's a very intense taste.
If you can find this 1984 25-year-old, I believe.
Yeah, it's called 1984. It's very hard to find now, but we were very happy with it. We won great awards with it, and it lends such a. You can really capture some of the Japanese culture through that whiskey and what we're going for as far as.
It's your way to travel to Japan without really going there.
Yes.
It sounds very good, but they need to taste it too.
Yes.
The only way for them to taste it is so that they can see us taste it.
Okay, well, let's taste it, please. I've been waiting for you to say that.
Thank you. Do you have to go to Japan many times and go out to those very numerous bars?
Unfortunately, yes.
Oh,
it's terrible stuff.
It's got to be tough, Gardner. Well,
Kanpai.
kanpai.
Cheers.